Well, hello, good evening, and my apologies to those of you that have just had the wax blown out of your ears. Yes, I replaced that and forgot to turn it back down. My abject and sincerest apologies. I do apologise, and I'm sorry as well. You don't often hear me say that. It's VTTalk tonight, and tonight there is a triumvirate, and I am, this evening, the rose between the two. No, I'm the thorn. No. In the cat house tonight, we've got the one and only bountilicious babe, the effervescent loveliness that is the one and only Sav. Good evening, Sav.
Good evening.
Have you recovered from your excesses of alcohol? Oh no, wait, that was me.
That was you. Well, yeah, I've recovered fine.
I have, yeah. I am great. You?
Spot on. How's yourself?
I was sat out in the sun this morning with my legs out
Oh God.
and got bitten.
By what?
Well, I've told Jill that she shouldn't get so excited.
At least it was Jill and not Keith.
That was last night. But enough of that. And in the... Hello, what's that behind your head?
That's Toby.
Oh, Toby. So that's who runs ivapor.co.uk, is it?
Yep, that's him in the flesh.
There you go. Yes, in the iMac tonight we have Sarah Jakes, who was up in she's here tonight to tell us what went on at the Ash Summit, and that'll be 5 pages worth, isn't it?
Oh, I've got 5 pages worth of notes. I'm gonna try and it a bit.
Brilliant. I can't wait because Sav and I had wine glasses up at the door and we were kind of, but was without being there. So they're going to be covering all kinds of stuff tonight. But thank you so much for. I'm sorry, that's really quite strange. It's the same colour as your hair.
Sorry.
We're going to be covering all kinds tonight. There is a new initiative for the EFVI, the European Free Vaping Initiative, and I've got some help. I want everybody. We're going to be talking about what went on up in Glasgow, and I don't know whether you were aware, but Deborah Arnott was speaking on Tuesday to the Americanians to try and tell them what they need to be doing with these. You're going to get your hat on when you hear this. I want to share that with you. That and much more on, what's it called, Sav?
VTTalk.
There you go. Yes, it's VT Talk with me, Dave Dawn, Sav and Sarah Jakes, and let's start straight off with the European Free Vaping Initiative and their new it's a new initiative and I think it's quite clever, called the Dodo Box, because it's got a picture of a dodo on, because if the AFVI doesn't succeed, it could end up being a bit of a dodo, as in ecigs could end up being a bit of a dodo. And these boxes are going to go out all around the country. I think it's either 150 or 300 have been created, and alongside them is the ability to print off forms for people to that will fit into the box. There it is. Say no to EU e-cigarette restrictions. Add your support, or ecigs are next. And these are to go into bricks and mortars and Lord knows where else. And I've got to say I'm very keen on this. I think it's a brilliant idea. Front and centre where people can see it. And the little cards that they can fill in very simply, because the official forms are so wordy and you can only get 3 signatures on a sheet. We drop it in, gets clattered into the computer, and off you go. I think that's brilliant. However, EFVI as a campaign, as an initiative, needs some help. So if you are in Scotland, or the Northwest, or the Northeast, or Eastern England, Wales, Northern Ireland, Yorks and Humberlands, those are the areas where they need coordinators to be able to coordinate where the boxes go and stuff like that. And you need to email box@efvi.co.uk. That's dodobox@efvi.uk. Dodo as in D-O-D-O, box, all one word, at efvi.co.uk. And if you would do that with some alacrity and speed and even go faster, that would be amazing, because it's my feeling, and I'm kind of hoping Sarah's going to chime in here. I would like to think that we would be able to achieve double our allocation by August. What do you think, Sarah?
I would love to see that. I need to apologise to the EFVI guys a little bit, because I've been so busy this last week. I haven't been able to kind of participate in the discussions and things, but I will get back on that this week and see if I can help them out with the boxes, because Slim's idea, and I think it's a fabulous idea, really. As you say, we've just got to get this stuff out there in front of people, make it as easy as possible for people to sign up.
It is. It actually is. Yes, it's Slim. Slim tweeted me about it last week, and there it is. They are ready to go. They're ready to go, and we need to get them out there and stuff like that. Is anybody in chat saying they're going to coordinate, Sav?
There's a couple of people. Ridian Man has said Wales have a coordinator. It's me. And Entropy 72 has said Yorks and Humber reporting.
There you go. See, I keep on saying we've got the best chat on the planet, and there you go. We're not 2 minutes in, and already it's working. There are people getting in there, getting stuck in, and making things happen. I love it. Thank you. Kudos. That's great. That's brilliant. So, just to run through again, Scotland. Bound to be somebody in Scotland that can do this. The northwest, the northeast. We know there's loads of vapours in the northeast. Eastern England. I don't quite know where Eastern is. That'd be Norfolk and
Suffolk and Lincolnshire. Maybe I've not looked at the actual map. But Norfolk, Suffolk, that area, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be. I was in a band with a guy whose surname was Norfolk.
Right.
It was Andy Weir, John Still, Peter Norfolk. Good.
Okay.
Weir, Still, Norfolk, and Good. It was a brilliant band.
Maybe he'd like to help.
Yeah, I'm shit. What's off?
Nothing.
There you go. Anyway, there you are. So we've got to Eastern England. Wales taken care of. Northern Ireland, please. Yorks and Humber taken care of. That's great. East Midlands, brilliant. If we can get that sorted by tomorrow night, that will be superb. If people can step up to the plate and do what needs doing. Email dodobox@efvi.co.uk. Yes, Sav, I heard the intake of breath. Go for
it. Or come and see us on UKV and get information from there.
There you go. 2 avenues of communication. Possibly fail, and I'm sure you won't let it fail. And well done, Slim. I think that is amazing. I'm going to let everybody have another look at that box. I think it's one of the nicer blues. Go on, tell me it's green.
It's green.
Thank you. It's not my fault, right? It's nature. But there you go. Right, so that's that. That's all good. I want to move on now. Sarah was in Glasgow last Thursday, a week ago today. And a week. Sober. Very sober.
Someone had to be.
You're looking at me when you say that. I was sober as a judge. Have you ever met a judge? Anyway.
Yeah, unlike your 2 little friends.
Yes, let's not go there, shall we not? Suffice it to say, for some reason, I was attacked. Well, not attacked. Well, kind of attacked by a public health person who was in charge of corpses, wasn't she, Sav?
Yes.
And a nutritionist, and they'd been partying hard. Let's go no further than that. Suffice it to say, I was a good lad.
You were the perfect gentleman.
I tried very hard not to end up in court or anything like that. But yes, it was actually quite an enjoyable conversation. In some ways. But that was the precursor to the Ash Scotland ecig summit the next day, and I'm going to throw it across to Sarah for a quick 10 minutes kind of overview of what went on and some of the details of what went on. So, I mean, from what Martin Dockwell said, Sarah, the morning was very positive. So do you want to take us through what happened in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, not knowing what to expect, because it was only the Wednesday morning that we had the love fest of Ash all over the media.
Yes.
Completely turning around, and of course the RCP piece that Linda Bald wrote. So all of my original thoughts and questions and things pretty much went out the window at that point. And I pretty much had to sit there and wait to see what way it went. But yeah, the morning session was very much more positive than the afternoon. Started off with Sheila Duffy, who's in charge of Ash Scotland. She did pretty much the opening address, and that kind of set the scene for what happened afterwards. Which was, the question was, how do we maximise the benefits and at the same time mitigate the risks of e-cigarettes? With the quite firmly on the benefits as far as she was concerned. She went through a study that Ash have done, which hasn't been published yet, so it's sort of embargoed, so don't anybody kind of run off to the press with it. But what she was saying is that there's now 2.1 million e-cigarette users in the UK, 700,000 of which are total switchers of the previous figures, which were 1.3 million and 400,000. So that's the sort of increase that there's been in a year. Mm-hmm. Their study also found use by never smokers is extremely low. Those are the words she used. And there's no data to suggest any gateway effect from e-cigarettes to lit tobacco. She said that they support harm reduction, but see the need for regulation on advertising, promotion and sponsorship. And in all honesty, I don't think we could really disagree with that. You know, the advertising needs to be responsible. Mm-hmm. They wanted age restriction and more control over product content and quality, which, you know, depending on how you go about it, I think you also can't really argue with. Obviously the devil's in the detail, isn't it?
As ever with all of these things, yes. I mean, you're looking at a situation where obviously PD is now agreed and so on and so forth, and implementation is the devil in the detail. It's how it's all going to come together that way. Sorry for diving in, but it's quite interesting that the figure to remember that was 21 million.
2.1 million.
21 million would be even better. 2.1 million.
Yeah.
I'm not hungover. 2.1 million. And Sheila Duffy said 700,000.
700,000 total switchers.
Remember that figure for later on, because there's more on this. Sorry, back to you, Sarah.
One of their concerns is big tobacco. Basically, they feel that the tobacco companies' aims are to get people using both products, i.e. dual use, which they see as a risk, not so much to individuals, because obviously cutting down on tobacco smoking, well, unless you speak to certain scientists, is obviously a health gain for those people, but they see it as an overall risk to society, because you will have more people continuing with their use of cigarettes, albeit at a lower amount, lower rate.
Right.
So that was pretty much a take on it. Difficult when I'm just reading from notes, but she did actually seem really quite positive about e-cigarettes, and she did actually, seek me out and speak to me at the end of the conference to ask me what I thought of what she'd said, and I had to say that I was quite surprised, and she did say that Ash are very positive about e-cigarettes. They are pro e-cigs, but they obviously have these concerns put from the tobacco industry and obviously the way that they're marketed.
It is quite interesting actually, because she easy grin when she saw me on the morning, and they all seemed very friendly. And I must admit, I was half expecting the kind of keep away from me, you vampire,
Yeah.
and that just didn't seem to be the case.
I
Even
have to say that Ash people couldn't have been more welcoming. They really were. I spoke to at least 4 people from Ash, and they pretty much sought me out to speak to me, and they couldn't have been more welcoming. Fair play to them.
it's it is quite an interesting situation. How did you find the public health, the smoking cessation people that were there?
Right. Well, they were pretty much all anti. Pretty much all anti. But yeah, it's strange. I mean, Nancy Doherty from Stop Smoking Services in Lanarkshire did actually give a presentation, and she said that they've seen 25 to 30% drop in customers, I guess they call them. Yeah, people using their services, and similar or larger drops elsewhere in Scotland. She also said that they've got people coming to their services saying that they've got off of cigarettes to those things.
I'm watching Sav's face here, I've got to say, because there's all kinds of reaction coming here.
The last one was deafened by your ecig.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, the whistling.
Sorry, do continue. I'll jump in after this. I've got loads coming in from chat.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, they've now got people coming to their service saying that they've got off the cigarettes, but now they're addicted to e-cigarettes, and that they're asking for help with that. Now, Doctor, I mean, she came across a lovely lady, and I don't doubt her word, but I would be very surprised if they're seeing very many of those.
As would I.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, I mean, I have heard it said, I have seen it said in comments on various different press sites, that the cigarettes, and now I'm addicted to e-cigarettes. And to be honest, I honestly think people have no idea what addicted really means. I don't use a Fagerstrom test. I look at it from this point of view. Would you break into a pharmacy to get one? And if the answer is no, you're not bloody addicted. It's that easy, really.
Yeah, well, I know the public health community themselves trying to define addiction, hasn't there? And Carl Phillips has written at length on it. Whatever word you want to use, addicted, dependent, like them rather a lot.
Habituated is a good word, I find.
Habituated, yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
Habituated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But, for all the stuff that Nancy Doherty said, she did say that she was encouraged by the fact that what she calls die-hard smokers, in other words, those ones that are really a lost cause to them, are switching, and that they were able to get off of lit tobacco using e-cigarettes, which was positive.
Hugely interesting. So have you got shed loads of stuff to go at then, Sav?
I have got absolutely loads of stuff. I'll rattle through. 700,000 full switches is incredible. Robert says, wow, that's good news. Lorraine again says, it's about time we had some new figures. 2.1 million vapers is really incredible. Spiritus Vapes says, and this is from Ash, I thought they were being daft about it and recommending against. Whip It Up 69 has said, have Ash gone soft on e-cigs because they know it's going to be banned? Plain devil's advocate. Lorraine again said, we're at a point now where it's too difficult to deny their impact. Spiritus Vape says, sooner or later, the e-cigs are deadly ban crowd are going to start looking like climate change deniers. Fergus Mason has said, tobacco industry involvement is a red herring. Who cares who's involved? Again, Spiritus Vape says, any responsible organisation will about face, but that won't mean necessarily they're on our side. DJ going on with that, surely they are all on the payroll. If smokers get healthy, what will they do? To which Entropy said, they get paid by the government, they don't give a monkeys, they'll just change to action on sugar and health or something as daft. Whip It Up has said, so addicted to something that's not bad for you, where's the problem? And Ridian Man has said, did Louise Ross get a mention at all?
That's a damn good question. Did Louise Ross get a mention at all?
I mentioned Louise. Twice during the day we had what they called table discussions, facilitated table discussions, and because my table was almost completely smoking cessation people, I did speak to them. I did try to speak to them about what Louise is doing, but they're kind of Scotland with this, really. You know, they have issues about e-cigarettes which fall into two broad categories, and that is the image and the renormalisation of smoking because of the way it looks, and the continuation of addiction, which is the phrase they use. You can't get past the fact that people are still using an addictive substance.
That's, I mean, Paddy Costello joined us last Thursday night, and he said he felt that as though Scotland was a year to 2 years behind the curve.
Yeah, that's very much the feeling I got. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's they haven't quite caught up with where every.
Don't seem to have. No.
It's really strange, isn't it? Interesting that that you mentioned renormalisation of smoking and stuff like that, because it's going to come up. I think in the second half, and I think it's probably a good idea if we take the adverts now and then play the second half in, because you've said what Sheila Duffy said, and that all seems to have been fairly positive, but there's bits that she didn't touch on renormalisation or anything, did she?
Not really, no.
Right. And what else did she not touch on that's normally the addiction thing? Did she hit that?
Children.
She didn't touch on the children. We don't think of the children in Scotland.
No, the rest of them do.
Yeah, have them deep fried. So yeah, get the adverts.
Before you do, I've just got two comments that I'm going to rattle through. Jester said, Scotland being stuck in the past sadly sounds exactly like Wales, unfortunately. And MG Jones says, I'm not addicted, I'm just a very enthusiastic hobbyist.
Well, exactly right. And if I'm to be right, I mean, Mark Drakeford is not only stuck in the past, he's positively Victorian. I am convinced he wears bloomers under. Let that image spoil the adverts. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
iVapour and iVapour Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's iVapour.co.uk and iVapour-elixir.co.uk. iVapour and iVapour-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of VapourTrails.tv.
And we're back. Welcome back to VTTalk here on Thursday the 10th of April at 9:25 and 9:25 and 35 seconds it says here, with the ever lovely Sav in the cat house and Sarah Jakes, who was up in Glasgow. During the course of the adverts, I was berated by my two colleagues here, who said that the whistle off my e-cig was overpowering everything. So we've now found another hole, and it's not whistling. And it's working better. Thank you, ladies.
Much better.
I found a better hole to suck. I probably didn't ought to have said that, really.
Probably
No.
Not that way.
No.
Right. I want to try and tie a few threads together here, because and people were asking in chat what the hell's happened to Ash. And did you get the feeling that even Ash Scotland, as contrary and anti as they have been over the last God knows how long, did you get the impression that they were coming round to our way of thinking, shall we say?
Definitely. I think they. I think they're not only coming round to our way of thinking; they're trying to change minds elsewhere as well.
This is very interesting, because on the Wednesday, Deborah Arnott was on the radio, on Radio 5 Live, and we could have written the script. You know, it was so. Then on Tuesday of this week, she was involved in a webinar on ecigs alongside Dominic Schnickels and Linda McAvan, both of whom had a very Europe-centric, and Linda McAvan's quite controlling about the whole thing, and that's fine. We're not going to listen to Linda McAvan tonight, because I want a nice jolly show if we can. But I did, thanks to Very Boring, manage to grab what Deborah Arnott had to say in this. And this is, first off, it said on the screen it was Deborah Arnott. I would have sworn blind it was Catherine Devlin, for all kinds of reasons. Find out why. I'll play it in now.
The principle were that nicotine products must be attractive as direct replacements for cigarettes, that consumers need to understand the benefits of using pure nicotine products as an alternative to smoking, that products should be widely available and visible on the high street, that price should provide an incentive to switch from tobacco, and that regulation should be proportionate to risk. Now, this was all before, well, I think e-cigarettes may have been launched on the UK market, but certainly before they took off. And it was really sort of outside any kind of thought about what cigarettes that this strategy was developed. And the current government policy which developed out of that in relation to e-cigarettes is that currently e-cigarettes are regulated as consumer products, and that will stay the same, but that and that we still support. I mean, we're not trying to say that harm reduction is a better alternative to quitting. Certainly stopping smoking immediately is the best option. But for those unwilling or unable to stop, using harm reduction approaches are appropriate using licensed nicotine products. And the medicines regulator has licensed medicinal nicotine, NRT, for long-term use, to cut down and for temporary abstinence. And NICE care professionals supporting such a harm reduction approach. As elsewhere in the world, the use amongst British smokers of e-cigarettes have grown rapidly. When we first started measuring it in 2010, it was about 3% of smokers currently using e-cigarettes, and that's grown to about 18% in 2014. The numbers ever trying e-cigarettes was 9% in 2010 and has risen to over 50%. And the pattern remains the same, which is for every 3 smokers who try, and this is a cross-sectional study, it's not a longitudinal study, and obviously there are limitations with that, but basically for every 3 smokers who try e-cigarettes, only 1 carries on using them. So current use in the UK, under the context of current consumer regulation, is that it's growing rapidly, and we estimated on the basis of that survey that it was around 700,000 in 2012, and it's now around, well, over 2 million. And 2014, of those 2.1 million, 1.5 million were current smokers, and 600,000 were ex-smokers but still using e-cigarettes. Now, health professionals here, as in the US, have concerns about the renormalisation of smoking, but so far our research and the research by others in the UK shows little use by non-smokers, either adults or young people. And adult and youth smoking is still going down, and I'll go to that now. So if you look at this, you can see that in 2014, use of e-cigarettes amongst those who have never smoked is non-existent, basically, below 1%. Use amongst those who smoke every day is much more significant, and that's where you've got the sort of 19% of current use. And there is use amongst those who smoke, but not every day, and some use amongst those who used to smoke. But as I say, no significant use amongst ex-smokers. And this is a large sample we're talking about. Well, I don't have the figures in front of me here, but they're on the links that I've provided at the end of the presentation. And it's not just amongst adults. Certainly we find, and this is a much smaller sample, and again it's cross-sectional and it has limitations, but basically amongst young people, and this was a survey of 11 to 18-year-olds, there's no use amongst, or almost non-existent use amongst never smokers, and consistent regular use as opposed to experimentation. I mean, teenagers and young people experiment, we know that. The issue is, are they regularly using e-cigarettes? And the answer is, it's only those who are already smokers who are using these products regularly. Figures from 2013. We've just finished carrying out the 2014 study and haven't done the proper analysis yet, but it's looking like, although the overall numbers have gone up, the pattern is the same. So there you can see that amongst, it's also the case that regular weekly use is assigned to older children, so it's amongst the 16 to 18-year-olds as opposed to the 11 to 15-year-olds. Combining this with work carried out by Professor Robert West, who some of you will know, who's a renowned researcher into smoking in the UK. His work, and he has a regular survey of smokers called the Smoking Toolkit Study, and more detail about the methodology of that is contained in the links at the end of this. But what he's been able to show, which is quite interesting, is that use of e-cigarettes for quitting has gone up considerably and has been accompanied by a smaller reduction in use of other aids except for behavioural support. And this is a survey, you can see it covers medicinal nicotine over the counter, medicinal nicotine RXs on prescription, Champix, and behavioural support. And at the same time, and obviously this does not prove a causal link, but I think it is interesting to see that at the same time as use of e-cigarettes has gone up, quitting has gone up as well. And so the percentage of ex-smokers, you know, people who have smoked in the past year who do not smoke now, has gone up. While these are long-term studies and they don't go up to the present day, but e-cigarette sales really started to take off in 2009, and as you can see, the rate, I mean, if you were going to see undermining denormalization and a gateway effect into smoking, you would expect to see that adult and youth smoking would not continue to go down, when actually both have been going down. And if you look at this, you can see that regular smokers in England aged 15 have fallen considerably over the last decade and more, and is downwards up until 2012 with no sign of it switching back up again. And then if you look at Robert West's data, which is published more regularly and goes up to the first quarter of 2014, actually, again, the trend continues to go down. It's 2011, and we're now seeing adult smoking prevalence in England of below 18% for the first time in living memory. So, nicotine regulation in future. In the UK, there is a twin track approach. E-cigarettes are currently regulated as tobacco consumer products. I see the Tobacco Products Directive regulation being as regulating them as tobacco products. But there will also be an alternative. They can opt into medicines regulation. Dominic about the fact that governments can decide to regulate them as medicines, but actually this has been challenged in the European courts, and governments have lost on this in the same way as they did in the US. Our medicines regulator, while it continues to encourage companies to voluntarily submit to medicines license applications for electronic cigarettes, is not saying that it will require medicines regulation. Although we do currently have two products which have publicly been stated to be going through the licensing process, and other manufacturers, importers, have said they will do so, including some of the big manufacturers like Enjoy. Our government also announced that there will be an age of sale for e-cigarettes of 18, and this is expected to come into force in April 2015. And our advertising rules are being updated in the light of rapid growth in the market in advance of the TPD. As Dominic said, under the European legislation on the Tobacco Directive and additional legislation brought in the UK, tobacco advertising, promotion and sponsorship is completely prohibited, including point of sale, and in fact we will have a complete ban on displays of tobacco products in shops from spring 2015. Brand sharing is completely prohibited throughout the EU. E-cigarette advertising is regulated in this light. We've got a consultation going on at the moment on the advertising code, and I think it's really important that e-cigarette advertising should evolve in the light of the emerging evidence. So if we look at the twin track approach, and the medicines regulator in the UK is more forward thinking it is in some other European countries, and medicines regulation is variable. For example, the UK, a number of years ago now, I think it was nearly 10 years ago now, decided that all medicinal nicotine products, NRT products, should be taxed at only 5% when the standard rate of VAT, of sales tax, in the UK is 20%, to provide an incentive to reduce the price and provide an incentive to people to buy these products. Under the TPD, cross-border advertising will be banned. Under the medicines regulation, advertising is allowed to adults. It has to be targeted to adults. You can't make health claims under the TPD. You can make health claims, obviously, under the medicines regulation. There will be limits on strength, as Dominic pointed out, of 20 milligrams per mil. Under medicines regulation, there will be much more flexibility on what can and can't be regulated, and the medicines regulator has encouraged manufacturers and importers to come forward with all sorts of varieties of devices. Products regulated under the TPD, there will have to be a 30% health warning on the packs, warning about the harm caused by nicotine. That will not be required on medicines. Member states retain powers, for example, banning flavours. Under medicines regulation, flavours will certainly be allowed. Under the TPD, you can't have these products on prescription. In the UK, the products will be available on prescription, as will all other NRT products, and will be free to poorer smokers. Under the TPD, products will be widely available in the UK, and this is different in some other member states, and that's one of the reasons why there were arguments in favour of regulation under the TPD and not medicines, which was the original proposal by the Commission. Products that are licensed as medicines are available not just in pharmacies, but also widely available elsewhere. So, in conclusion, electronic cigarettes are still new and evolving. They may be electronic, but they're certainly not cigarettes, nor are they smoked. But the fact that they're called cigarettes and described as being smoked, I think has led to alarm that is completely out of scale with the potential risks. So far in Britain, the evidence is that they're helping smokers quit while not under regulation. My view is that regulation needs to evolve in the light of the evidence, to be flexible, to ensure safety and quality of the product, and require market surveillance and monitoring. But there is a very real risk, so there are risks in both directions. Okay, there are risks about gateway, and we need to keep monitoring it, because just because it doesn't appear to be a gateway yet doesn't mean that that couldn't happen in future. But on the other hand, over-regulation could actually undermine quitting, and that would be a very sad thing if it happened. Britain will be going down a dual route from 2016, so manufacturing into the TPD or into medicines regulation. And I think the lesson for the US is that you need to ensure that electronic cigarette regulation maximises the benefits while minimising the risks. And you have to do that within the context of your regulatory environment, which is obviously different from ours. And we're going to be very interested to see what the FDA deeming regulations look like when they come out. And if you have any idea when that will be, I'd be very interested.
Yes, interesting, most interesting, and I'm sure chat's had a lot to say about that.
Chat have had an awful lot to say, so apologies I won't be able to get all of it, but I'll read out what I can. Entropy 72 says, okay, who is this and what have you done with Deborah Arnott?
Well, that was what we were just saying.
Yeah. Max Highter says, did I hear the word license mentioned? Slim UKV says 33% ain't bad, it's better than their failure rate. Entropy has also said, it's almost like they're listening to us, but that's obviously not telling us what's good for us. Blaze has said, Robert West keeps saying ecigs have stalled, so who's right? The Morning Star says they probably haven't stalled, but all the negativity towards them won't have helped.
Well, I just need to dive in at that point, if I may. You said I could. So
You did.
So I will.
Mm-hmm.
I will. I'll do it. The Deborah didn't make any reference to that dip that was in the graph that coincided with the BMA coming out and being all crackers and mad about saying ecigs are the work of the devil, spawn of the devil, and just should be banned off the face of the planet. But you were saying as well. No, I'll shut up, Dave, and go back to where Sav was. Sorry, Sav. Go on.
It's alright, you feel free to discuss anything. I've got this written on paper, I'm not memorising it.
I'm not hungover. Back to you.
Okay, Entropy 72 says, it's funny how the growth stalled at the same time that the ants kicked into overdrive in the media.
Oh, preempted,
Yeah.
sorry.
Max Drum says, I would like to know where they actually get their figures from.
Can I dive in there?
You can.
Because I'd love to know as well. Apparently it's a survey of over 6,000 people that's done. It's like all of the market surveys that get done. They've got 6,000 people, and apparently they're representative of everybody, and so on and so on and so forth. And Deborah couldn't see the figures. They were at the bottom of the graph. I read them. 6,148 people, I think it was, they surveyed to find out what the whole use was. The toolkit survey is massive. It's tens of thousands, isn't it, Sav? Yeah. Right. I'll shut up again.
Okie dokie. Mitch Dog says, no gateway. Who knew? Entropy has said, it's almost like there's a relationship between their lower take-up and the scare stories. Slim UKV says, oh, glad to see she's happy to accept Robert West's figures. That's useful to know.
Mm-hmm.
Steffi says, the damn children are using a media here in Germany at the moment because of the DKFC warning. Lorraine has said, nice, want the Stop Smoking Services to ask vapers to use Champex and the like instead. Matt Dider 77 has said, nail this presentation onto the doors of Stanton Glance and Simon Chapman, please.
I have been, and I will be creating new Twitter accounts to make that happen.
Mitch Dogger said the evidence being leave e-cigs alone, they're doing fine. Regarding something that came up about the brand sharing, Spiritus Vape says the number of smokers that would switch if brand sharing was allowed would be astronomical. If you could just nip into the shop and buy a Marlboro e-cig or whatever.
I agree with that totally. I mean, especially if they manage to nail the flavour. That would make people certainly give them a try, you know, a looky like, and that's probably the best use for a looky like. If you, I mean, I look at it from the point of view that I'm not against people smoking, never have been, never will be. Was one, I'm one, just found a cleaner way of doing it. So, you know, it's down to people's choice, and if that's going to make it easier for to choose something that I think is nicer, then great. And when they discover, you know, Fire and Ice and if they like those, that's great as well. And if they can get one that whistles tunes like mine does or did, even better. Sorry, Sav, I'll shut up.
Yes, do that. Matt Didas has said 200,000 less quit attempts in the EU per year due to the TPD, according to LSE. Whip It Up 69 says, is that title showing what the MHRA are saying they should want?
That, I believe, is what is going to happen. The devil, as we said earlier on, is in the detail. We're going to play that in before we got to the third half, because Sarah's got some input on this from what happened up in Glasgow. But I'll shut up again. Go on, Sav.
Silver074 says, this makes it seem like the MHRA is extorting manufacturers. Pay us to get a medical licence, or you do whatever you want. You don't get any of the benefits, really. It's like, if you get your medical licence, knock yourself out.
Yes, I can't disagree with that. And what really knocks me about the whole thing, and I want to make some inquiries about this, is apparently you've got to pay all the money up front. And if you don't get through, you don't get refunded. That's as I understand it. I could be wrong. But, yes, you know, this is the world we live in.
Yeah, Slim UKV says, so no health warnings on MHR products at all. MHRA products at all.
Well, that's an interesting one. The bloody well ought to be on Chantix, that's for sure.
I'm right.
Champix and Zyban, absolutely, certainly. But yeah, there's going to be health warnings on non-medicinal e-cigs, but apparently any medicinal e-cigs will have gone through all the tests to say that these are absolutely perfectly safe. The fact that they could be bloody identical seems to have escaped the minds of the people that make the rules and the regulations. And again, I have the sneaking suspicion that some of us are going to be making our gobs go about that. I'll be one. Will you be one, Sarah?
Yeah, no, I certainly will be.
So there you go. I mean, that'll be that. I'll shut up.
Heiko has said, this is most worrying. They still haven't got a clue. Slim UKV said, nicotine is fine when regulated. The health warning went under the TPD. No.
Well, Sarah said something about that, didn't you, Sarah?
Yeah, that was a point that I brought up at the Glasgow summit thing, you know, because all of their arguments are based on renormalisation and continuation of addiction, and I said, well, you know, when these things have got their MAs or whatever and they've all paid a fortune to get them, they'll still be the same thing. So what's the difference? And that was greeted with quite a few blank stares.
There's a shock. Back to you, Sav.
Tony Rushby has said, Ash have realised that they have to embrace e-cigs so that they will be angling very much for the licence side of the big split that will be coming up. The big split being between decent e-cigs and the regulated alternative, to which Spiritus Vape said there's literally no reason why medicinal e-cigs can't coexist.
I would actually agree with that. I can't see any reason why they can't coexist, and it would seem to me that you've got on the medicinal side, people that are looking for tobacco cessation, nicotine abstinence. And I think you picked that up in Glasgow on the afternoon, did you not?
Yeah, it was probably the most contentious issue in Glasgow, was the issue of continuation of addiction, as they keep putting it. You know, they haven't really got their heads around yet what their position is on nicotine abstinence as opposed to tobacco abstinence.
It's a weird one, and again, there's a big job of education to be done, and again, Louise Ross is right in the forefront of that, because she's converting. Time goes by, one by one, they're all falling and following. And we're now seeing, effectively, what's happened here. Ash Scotland has more or less fallen into line, although there is a difference. Ash Scotland thinks it's 700,000 exclusive vapers, and Ash UK thinks it's 600. Be interesting to hear what Ash Wales comes out with, but they've even said that they can't see any why there should be a ban on vaping in public places. And I've got to admit, from my own perspective, it's confusing the buggery out of me, because I didn't see this coming. I didn't see getting on its hind legs, and specifically Deborah Arnott. I didn't see Deborah doing this. But again, and I want to come back to Glasgow, when we were up there, we were talking to Martin Dockrell, and I mentioned what Deborah had said on Radio 5 Live, and he just said, see, I told you she was very supportive. I've been telling you she's very supportive. She just... And he said...
I've heard that from other sources as well.
Yeah.
That she's been supportive for a long time, but just hasn't, within the framework that she has to work within in Ash, just hasn't been able to put that across, I suppose is the best way of putting it. But yeah. Now she's kind of stepped, hasn't she?
Swinging a big bat, it would seem. As I say, for a large part of that, I would have sworn blind it was Catherine Devlin talking. Absolutely would. Is there anything more there, Sav? Because I can see that ineffable look on your face.
I've got a couple more. I've got two more comments and I'll end it for now. Vapor Keeper said, continuation of addiction is a big pile of bollards. As is renowned, people in the UK are caffeine addicts and a lot of people are alcohol addicts, and that's just fine. Why the double standards? And the final comment for now is from Tobacco Tactics. Saying, trusting anybody at Ash is a mistake. Do not trust them. Do not trust them.
Well, how can I put this? I think I've said this before. There are times when you have to work with people with whom you do not agree when the right song is being sung. Sometimes you have to sing in harmony for the greater good. And I think this is possibly one of those times. As I say, I am as confused as all buggery, because it's not a sea change, because their printed documentation said this all the way through and has done for the last 18 months that I'm aware of. And I just don't know what to make of the standing on the back legs and yelling it from the rooftop stuff that's going on at the minute. Like TT, I am somewhat suspicious of what's going on, which is why I'm kind of getting as much info as I can out of Sarah about what was happening with public health, but what we're seeing with the smoking cessation services as well. Sarah, what do you think?
Sure. I think we do, because I'm thinking back to when I read all those freedom of information requests, where Deborah Arnott was definitely pushing for medregs for all e-cigarettes.
Yes.
And that really wasn't that long ago. So you have to bear in mind that kind of time. I think we have to give people the space to change their minds. And what's important at the end of the day is what Ash are telling people who are influential. So if we see Deborah Arnott out there making the right noises, I don't really think we can complain. I think we need to keep an eye on it, certainly. If she's making the right noises in the right places, then what more could we ask?
I think it should certainly be monitored and subject to surveillance, much like they would like ecigs to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a few comments from chat on this. Nelly Scroggett says, conspiracy theory maybe, but I feel we're being set up. Mitch Dogger says, getting into bed with the enemy can be a good thing, just wear protection.
Does he mean 2 bags?
I would have to get clarification on that. I would hate to put words in Midge Dog's mouth. Disco Test says, so it seems like Ash have backtracked on loads of their objections to e-cigarettes. It now seems their last attempt to denormalise e-cigs is to say addiction is bad for you. Sorry, demonise, that's... And Entropy 72 has said, there's a big difference between working with someone and trusting them.
I think it's Sav knows better than most. I tend not to trust an awful lot of people. But there is the theory that says keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer, who say they're your friends, even closer still. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's...
None of we're going into this world, so...
No, it's not the first time we've been round the track, is it?
No.
But the thing is, as well, and let's go further with this, we're off to London in Sarah.
We certainly are, May the 15th.
Tell everybody what's going on.
Well, there's a Public Health England symposium in London on May the 15th.
Sounds very posh.
Doesn't it just? Which is being organised, presumably not personally, ostensibly by Martin Dockrell, who is now at Public Health England and in charge of the Tobacco Control Department. The symposium is at public health directors, who are the sort of people who are in charge of stop smoking services. And Martin approached us in Glasgow and asked for vapers to attend the symposium because he very much wants us to be. He is pro ecigs. They've got lots of interesting speakers, including Oliver Kershaw. I noted.
Really?
on the panel, yes, and Martin McKee.
Oh, I know we're supposed to be choosing which symposium thing breakout, please.
Yeah, I've saved him for you.
Thank you. I've got a 45 caliber and a 762 and a massive big mouth, and I'd be more than happy to use it.
That's all you need.
That'll be delicious. Yeah, are you treating all of this with a level of scepticism?
Definitely. I think we have to. But the fact that we're now being invited to these things, it has to be a positive. You can't influence people from the outside just by shouting at them on Twitter, as much as we'd like to. And I think the more of us that gets involved in these sort of things, because I think especially after the UKNCC thing, the stop smoking ones that's in June, there's going to be a lot of more localised interest in e-cigarettes within smoking cessation services and that side of. We're going to need to have people all over the country probably who are prepared to engage and talk about their experience with e-cigarettes and help them with that. I know obviously there's obviously been suspicion about whether all the stop smoking services thing again is some sort of a trap for us or something like that. But the more we're out there, the more mainstream it goes, the more of us there are, it can only help.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree, and I would say when this thing mushrooms and does go wider, then nothing about us without us. If we're involved, we can give the right argument, we can give the right facts because we know. And I'm sure, Sav, that Chat's got more to say because I can see in your eyes.
Chat were quite excited about that. Apparently Lorraine's jumping up and down. Whip It Up says he'd pay to watch that discussion. Says someone must video it, please.
Well, we'll do what we can. I'm sure there'll be somebody sat in an audience with an iPhone, and if you've got an iPhone 5S, it zooms on video now. Did you know that?
No.
I did not.
Yes, other smartphones are available, but they're not as good.
Stop it.
I know, I'm rotten.
Yeah.
I'm rotten. I have to say, trying to sum all of this up, I am confused, but I'm optimistically confused. It's a very, very strange situation. I think at the minute, I feel as though I'm a little bit in no man's land, because it's kind of really weird. People that we had seen as being diametrically opposed to where we wanted to be, that the fist fight in Europe has finished, ding ding, time out, and the winners' arms have been raised and so on and so forth. They seem to be behaving, given that Deborah Arnott was speaking specifically to America, specifically with regard to regulations in America and Canada. It could have been Catherine Devlin. It's really, really strange to see that kind of thing coming from an area where we've been very conscious of motives and tactics and what they've said publicly and so on and so forth, even though what we've heard privately has been very different. And I find myself now in a situation where phrases like don't trust them now, don't trust them ever, I am taking that on board. And I am giving it a great deal of thought, and I am talking to an awful lot of people, as I'm sure you are, Sarah.
Yeah, as many people as I can, really. Anybody will listen.
Well, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to get as much information as we can and find out where the allies are, the true allies. But I think now we have a period where maybe people think we can take the pedal off the metal. I think we need to get it flat.
Absolutely, we've got a foot in the door.
Yes, and I think we've got to make our presence felt and our voices heard. And I think we can't afford to be complacent about what's going on. And I think we've got to really push the EFVI and everything that involves, so that we can prove, look, there's 2.1 million vapers, 700,000 that have completely switched. We need to see at least 700,000 signatures, frankly, is what we need to see, preferably before August. But I am aware that we're running over. I'm also aware that Kat knows where I live. So
I watched this come from Kat.
Go on, I dare you.
Says, I wish Dave would stick to times, I really need to pee.
See, I don't feel bad about that. You might suffer in the morning, but I don't feel bad about that. Wasn't me, didn't do it, wasn't there, knew nothing about it, it was thrust upon me, I have no clue. Deniability, that's called, isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll save Linda Bald and Gerard Hastings for part 2 then, shall we?
Yeah, but if she's that desperate, yes, we can't have the crossed knees dancey thing. But she's got a bucket. Never mind. Okay then, Sav. Let's go to chat and get the last word from chat before we wind this all up.
I've got 2 last words from chat tonight, and Mitch Dog has said, maintain the distrust, stick 2 hats on, and take 'em on, Dave. And the very last word tonight goes to Very Boring, who says, the weather is changing. It's just figuring out if it's going to storms come.
Yes, exactly right. And with that in mind, I'm going to be talking to an awful lot of people, and we will sort out what this is all meaning, because quite frankly, I just don't know what to make of it at the minute. Like I say, I'm cautiously optimistic, and I like it when I'm cautiously optimistic because we seem to go in the right way. All that remains for me is to say thank you to Sav and to Sarah. I thought you'd frozen there for a second, Sav. You're obviously reading something else.
I am, yes.
All right, fair enough. Thanks, Sarah, for being with us. Again, I'm sorry that we didn't give you the whole of the show, but I thought that thing from Deb's needed playing in.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's going to be more coming out of this, I'm sure. Thanks again to Sav, because I get the impression your job was not the easiest it's ever been tonight.
It was a busy one, yes.
Well, thank you to you and the team and everybody that's backing you up there. That's great. Thanks to Chris for holding it in this long.
It's just bouncing.
Okay. I'd better say vape on, vape hard, and don't miss the bucket when the bastards grind you down. Until we see you next time, take care, be nice to one another, and be a little bit sceptical. Till we see you next time, take care from all of us. Cheery bye.